thought used to be my friend, had lumbered me with this. And last week then, the doorbell rang. Alan was on the door, come to say, "We've published your name." That was me lumbered. So please bear with me. I will try to think of a few things to say from the last day or two, and look at perhaps a little bit about 50 years ago, and I will say a few thank yous as well as we go through. Not necessarily all very dull. I'll try and be a little bit light-hearted. I will start by just thinking 50 years. I'm reminded of a lady who went to the dentist for the first time in many decades, and it was a different dentist, and she saw the name. She thought, I wonder if that could be the hunk I had the hots for, as you ladies do, when I was young. She went along, had the treatment, and it was him. She barely recognized him and changed a bit. And then she said at the end, I'm going to check. So she said, were you at such and such school in such and such a year? Yes, he said, with great enthusiasm. And as she said to her friend later that day, how could I have ever had any feelings for that bald-headed, wrinkled, fat, beastly, old, smelly man? Do you know what he said to me? Well, you were there too. What did you teach? So when I looked round this room in the last 2 days, and I thought, aren't we all in pristine condition? We're looking absolutely great. All right, we'll pass over that. What did it? Chemistry. The chemistry lab did it. Think about it, 50 years ago. Each week, a healthy dose, a lungful of ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, bromine. We played with mercury on the benchtop. We had asbestos tape to burn things on. We had all these exciting things. We had things blowing up. What was health and safety? Health and safety was whether Alan on his scooter got back from the union on a Friday night. It was a wonderful era, the era of the 60s, an era of new opportunity, of that was the week that was, of free love, though I never found it, of all sorts of things. Did you pay, George? You know me, I never pay for anything. That's certainly well known. That's why they chose me after tasking 25 others. I was the cheapest. Supposedly renowned for that. And thanks for reminding me of that. So with these wonderful opportunities, it makes me think of another story. This is a true story about the 60s and the opportunities of the 60s and where we were and what we did. About a few years ago, I was asked to be full-time guardian to a Commonwealth student coming to Edinburgh through his sport to complete his education. He came to me as guardian, and at the end of that, he got a good A-levels. He had to go to university. Well, he was pretty bright, but not obviously as bright as uncle, so he couldn't get into Edinburgh, the best university. So we had to find somewhere for him to go. Well, we got him a full scholarship to a place called Harvard, which I recognised as being nearly as good as Edinburgh, but it was college. And off he went. I was delighted because it meant he couldn't come home every weekend and use up hot water and heat, which matters a lot to me. So off he went to Harvard. And after 4 years, I get the phone call, Unks, will you come to graduation? The keynote speaker, this is absolutely true, the keynote speakers are Bills Clinton and Gates, and obviously it would be a great honour for them to meet a double graduate from Edinburgh. So off I flew to Boston. And whilst I was at the graduation, incidentally, seriously, was most interesting, fascinating, except these wretched OTT Americans. You know, at the end of the graduation, they all tossed their hats in the air. At least they were mortarboards and not bloody baseball caps. So during this, he took me to his rooms to collect some stuff, and there I went. Now, as a special constable in Edinburgh in the 60s, I was used to going to various unsalubrious residencies in Pilton and Craigmillar, and in Eden a few raids in delectable Doras and Danube Street, but you're all too young to know about that until after 10 o'clock. And anyway, he took me to these rooms. Now, these rooms, which were occupied with the creme de la creme of American society youth, were, well, the only word is a midden. Good old Scottish word, an absolute midden. And as I sort of scrambled among the detritus of this awful place, I opened the door. There was a young couple sitting in the bed smoking pot. and if one eyes dropped, putting this as discreetly as possible, there was a strong possibility they were about to indulge in something rather more athletic, for which health and safety, according to their mothers, would definitely be required. So what do you do when you're looking at a young couple like that? With imperious grandeur, I said, don't worry about me, I'm a 60s graduate, a 60s student. We invented it all. And fled the scene. So there we are. I'm going to pass on and say, I think we've had a marvellous couple of days, and I would like us to have a toast. Now, when I say have a toast, I don't want you to feel that you should stand up. In deference to age, I wasn't the only one in the MR lab who said yesterday, am I going to be sucked into the machine because of my new hip? And I'm aware there's hips and there's knees and there's stents and there are things that I won't mention. So, but I will have a little toast, because I think we should look back and think to these wonderful years, the 60s, with all these opportunities. As I said, from free love, we're now through to Viagra, though by the time it kicks in, you've probably forgotten why you've taken it. So we go through there, and what do we thank? We thank the university. We've been at a marvellous university, which still ranks, as we heard so eloquently yesterday from the professor, amongst the very top ones. We were lucky to be here. Then the department, and I refuse to call it a school, the department, with its characters, and they have great characters. We had Sir Edmund Hurst, we had later Principal Tom Cottrell, we had Kembo, we had Silky Smooth Greenwood, we had the incomparable Neil Campbell and his plus fours, and we had the amazing Arnold Beavers. And I discovered something about him yesterday. As well as making these incredible models, he fancied other models. And that was a hidden light under a bushel that I never knew about. And then even down to the stores, for Mr. Shedden, I think it was, protected everything in the stores, and we could never get anything out of it. Apart from two of us, who managed to steal quite a few chemicals. Now these two may wish to put their hands up or blush. And these two went up to the Pentland Hills and practiced being juvenile rocket scientists, the sort of thing that nowadays would cause a red alert throughout the whole country. Will these two wish to put their hands up?
It was the Lammermoors, actually.
It was the Lammermoors.
Wasn't it, Tom?
So we had these, and then we went across the Union, where the canteen was ruled over by the equally formidable Miss Ingalls. And if you wanted to play squash, tennis, badminton, you had to get past smiling Mr. Junior or unsmiling Mr. Hodge in the box. And if you were a lazy bastard, you went and practiced your bridge skills. So we have all these to think about. And then we move on more seriously to our classmates, those who sadly are no longer with us. We remember them with affection. And those who couldn't come but sent their best wishes. I loved the story from Alan about the old codger who said he couldn't come to the 50th and regretted because he'd also missed the 25th, but he looked at the website and seen his face in the picture of those at the 25th. Now it's fairly brave to admit that. It's fairly brave to admit that. And then there's one I would say who'd been very ill in the last year, and I'm thrilled to bits to see has made it here, and that's Tom Smith, who's been so ill. It's great that you've made it here. Well done. But I don't believe in ever just being nice to people, so I will say that there is a problem with Tom. He's had to part company with his best friend over the past 60 years, that he can no longer indulge his best friend quite so much, and that's booze. And indeed, I've left a note for myself to sell my distiller shares tomorrow. And then we come on, well there we are, our organising committee, and that's the ones I would like to come to and thank our organising committee. Led by the indefatigable Alan, who went to, after with Eastman Kodak, 20 years in America, many of these years in Hollywood, where he rubbed shoulders with the great, the not so good and the glamorous. Fortunately, none of the glamour wore off onto him, and he's still the lovely grizzly Alan we all knew and loved. And then we have Patrick. Now I was going to be rude to Patrick because at the end of his time in university, he, in graduate years, he emigrated to the first chemical physics class, which I thought, well, that's a bit of an impurity, should we allow him to be here? Then Stuart said to me last night, do you know that all the PhD theses are online? Well, I didn't. Anyway, since it was piddling down this morning, I went to the website and it's there.
Yes.
So I knew I couldn't cope with any of the science, but I had a look at the acknowledgements. And would you believe it, in there, I have got a special thanks to Patrick Edington, BSc, for writing the computer program that I... So Paddy, all is forgiven. Thank you so much.
I don't remember any of that.
Because of course computers in these days, well, the computer frame was the size of this room, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yes.
immense.
Yeah.
And nowadays you carry it around, the progress is you carry it around in your hand and you go to classes to be cured of addiction. Which one of us pensioners, great fun, is walking down the road and seeing who you can bump into that isn't looking, provided it's well, we won't go down that road. And then the person who lumbered me with this, the person I played squash with for 40 years, Colin Whitehead, and he developed, apparently it was my fault, he got 2 new hips. So he willed and prayed and hoped, and the bastard was right, I've had a new hip this year. He got his own back. But he, in fact, is getting a new name tonight. He is going to be called GB from here onwards. Because this man, as a student and as a retired man, has a particular care. He is very, very big in butterfly conservation. And he is so much out of the country that I bet he exceeds the amount the rest of you travel all put together. So I'm going to call him the global butterfly from here on in. And we're extremely lucky to have him in Edinburgh on an occasional visit. These 3 gentlemen were aided and abetted with a generous dollop of the original gentleman's gentleman, Professor Lindsay Sawyer, who is really, it gave me so much fun to go around with him yesterday as he wound up the technicians about left-handed burettes and eventually a left-handed pipette. Absolutely fab. Gentlemen, and you didn't have gender equality, so we'd know ladies. Gentlemen, well done, you've done a fabulous job and thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
So ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure I'm boring the pants off you. I think we should have a toast and we should think about the university. We should think about the department, we should think about our classmates, we should think about our organising committee, but most of all, we should think about us. We've made it, we're here, we're still going. Lang may our Bunsen's still flicker, if not burn brightly. Thank you for listening to me, and have a very good night.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Cheers.